Cheesy1s, and welcome to my first interview and audio for the blog and website. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Jonathan Broomfield and I'm based in the New Forest in the south of England. I run the Cheesy1 blog and website that provides a fun and informative look into cheese with the aim to help cheesemakers exposure to support our dairy trade. With my passion and enthusiasm, I'm determined about getting their message and products out into the world. Through this aim, I can provide my clients with a professional, knowledgeable and cohesive bespoke cheese event service to cater for all. My guest today is Nicola Beardmore from Brown and Green Shop and Cheesemonger, Staffordshire. Having followed Nicola on Instagram, I knew of her, but we officially met in spring at the British Cheese Awards in Shepton Mallet. Full of cheese love, fun and vibrancy, we instantly became cheesy friends, and I couldn't be prouder that she was awarded Young Cheesemonger of the Year. I just knew she should be my first ever guest. Welcome, Nicola.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I am Young Cheesemonger of the Year. I've been working at Brown and Green in Trentham, in Stoke-on-Trent, for just over 2 years now. Fell into the role, and I also do a lot of judging to an international level, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, it's a great industry to be part of.
And keeping the same theme as the blog, I want it to be fun and informal for us all, having a chat over coffee. I'll just ask you some questions, we'll have a general chat about them, and hopefully we give all the listeners an insight into some cheese.
Oh yes.
So, how does it feel to be Young Cheesemonger of the Year?
In all honesty, it still hasn't quite sunk in. I don't think it will sink in until I'm sort of handing my title over next year, in all fairness. It's been a ridiculous year. It really, really has, both for the industry and myself. And being part of the industry illustrates really just how important cheese is to both our country and again to the whole world. And it's not just a product anymore. Young Cheesemonger of the Year has also given me loads of opportunities, which I'm sure we'll chat about later anyway. It's not quite sunk in, to be honest.
That's exactly how I've sort of seen it. Cheese as a whole is, when you look at it from the outside in, it kind of seems like quite a niche product. It seems a bit unique and a bit almost quirky, but when you're in the industry and you're actually working towards it, and like yourself being given the accolade of Young Cheesemonger of the Year, it's surreal, but also quite nice to know that you're having an active role in taking this further for future generations.
Well, that's just it. It's not just having an outsider's look into the industry. It's about being part of it. As serious as a lot of the awards are and the judging, like there is a very, very serious aspect to it, and everybody wants to win those awards. But it's such a fun and dynamic and innovative industry. Every single person that I've met in the industry is amazing, and especially towards younger people. They're so welcoming and inviting, and there's not one person that I've spoke to that's not been there with open arms, and it really is so lovely to see.
That's certainly good to hear, and I can mirror that experience as well. That is exactly how I see it. Everyone's very open, gives you advice if you need it, very informative, and like you say, really wants to pitch in to help you out, but also you can in return help them out as well.
The other part of like judging and things like that, and that's the other reason that I love it so much. There's products coming out all the time. There's new things that are different. Going to the awards and helping with judging, that sort of thing, really does almost put limelight on a lot of the newer ones and the ones that aren't as heard of. And then again, with the retail side of things, we can help boost them and get them into the stores and get them more well known.
When you go out and about, either on travels or you go to a show, and of course when you go judging, as you know, you don't always have the name or the label of where that cheese has come from. But in the past, as I imagine you have, coming back from doing your judging, if you want or to find out, I try desperately to find out who that cheese was, where did it come from, be proud to take that product on further if it was really stand out. And sometimes it's just a small artisan cheese, and that can make all the difference to them to get that coverage.
Well, that's just it. There was a product that I judged at the International Cheese Awards this year at Nantwich. It was part of the sweet flavour added imported category. And they were these little goat pearls, and they were absolutely stunning. There were a few varieties of them. The first flavour we tried was fig. So it was a goat pearl with delicate spot of fig jam in the middle.
Yeah.
And they were absolutely stunning. We went back for seconds of them. They were amazing, and they did marmalade ones and raspberry ones, and they were phenomenal. Pretty sure the fig ones got the gold out of our category, actually. After all they got the gold. After all the winners were announced and everything was up online, I actually found out who made them. The name escapes me at the moment, but then emailed them to see where I could get them from in the UK. So it's little things like that, and I still tell my customers that story, which we haven't been able to get hold of at the moment anyway, for retail purposes, but things like that I'd have never thought of in a million years before. Like 2 years ago, I didn't even like goat's cheese, and to be able to judge something like that really was phenomenal. It was really something special, and again, they're not that easy to get hold of either. Just brings to light what there is in the world.
Yeah. Cheese as a food industry and section. I mean, there's masses of small time producers out there that put their products into these awards to either get them coverage, get them out there, just to test the waters and see how well they achieve awards and how they judge. And when we're there, it's up to us to provide that feedback also, but to go to them as well, like you have, and follow up and have a chat with them and see just what you can do, either just to say I love the product, or just to put that out there and see whether or not you can supply them, or you can try it, or if there's any other things that they might be doing, or even learning in some respects their methods behind their cheese making, because they might be doing something that is actually really unique that you didn't know the process before, but now you can have a look and go, wow, I can take that on board and perhaps try and use that to form some way forward over here.
Judging anyway is down to personal taste. So even if there's things that some people aren't the biggest fan of, they may still do very, very well. And there's a lot of, I mean, it is quite a political industry anyway, which again is why they like having younger people in there, so that there's no bias, and so you can get there, because I mean there's a lot of cheeses that I still haven't heard of at all, to be honest. And until people show them me and I can make the links of like, oh that's who makes it and that's where this comes from. And again, there's a lot of people that are reaching out, but they're also willing to help each other, which again, like I say, we've got these big international competitions, but everyone's still willing to help each other. And as much as people love winning those awards, and they are fantastic, and it's really nice when people win them as well. They announce the names, and it made me laugh at the British, because White Lake won it, and I milked their goats with them this year between judging and between the award ceremony, which was ridiculous. Just sort of went back, quick change, and then we had the dinner. And with them winning it, and it was just so nice to see him be a part of that and have that story with them.
Yeah, that personal connection on our side of things. Not only do we go out and judge and make and get involved on farms and what have you, but to actually be in front of a customer, to be able to sell the product, goes miles further than most. To be able to stand in front of your customer and have the confidence and say, I milk their goats, or I help them in some way, that connection that you have with that product and then with your customer is just superb.
Well, there was a cheese I'll never ever forget. It was I think it was maybe March this year. Very, very close supplier. Is a close to my heart as well, to be honest. It's a lovely, lovely person. He makes brie, local brie, with purebred Guernsey cattle. So he got hit with TB last year and was left with 14 cattle. All those that were in calf with beef. And Guernseys, especially where we are, aren't the easiest to get hold of at all, and they're not the cheapest. But with the certifications and everything that he's got, he needed to stick with them. So the original email I had off him was, "I'm really sorry, I'm not making any more." I welled up and was just like, well, this man's livelihood's completely at stake with this. And in March this year, it was earlier than that, I had an email off him saying I'm back up and milking again, but it'll be a while before I've got the cheeses. And then a few months later, I went to make with him, which was a lot of fun. And then when they were ready for sale, because they're quite a young brie, they tend to be about 2 to 4 weeks, which is very young, but we keep them in store and they last a while. And the brie that I made with him was the ones that he brought in. So I was there telling the customers, I was like, "I made this." And they were just looking at me with the strangest looks. I was like, "Yeah, I made it."
A brilliant story, but testament to also, as you were saying, about helping each other out, just how much everybody does help each other out to keep going, and that willingness to keep the product going or to help them any way you can, really.
Well, it's been quite a hard year for the dairy industry this year, specifically the farms, because obviously we've had the really warm summer and the silage situation and everything like that. So I overheard a conversation at the internationals this year, and it was between Mary Quick and I can't remember who it was, and she was literally asking how their silage is looking. And it's little things like that where they're real people, they care. And the passion and the love that they have for each other really is paramount.
They've shared generations of families, and when you talk about the Quick supporting other people in the industry, most of the big dairies and family farms have been going for hundreds of years, so to keep supporting them, and it's important that they still have the healthy competition, but to have that nurturing and the helping and to have that hand there when needed is just as important.
Yeah, like I say, especially with this year, how dry it's been, and it's not been a good industry in terms of farming. A good year, in terms of farming. But they are there, even at the awards and everything, everyone mingles, and they get, like, I've never, ever, ever seen any fallouts or disagreements or anything. Everyone gets on with it, especially at these awards and in the dinners and everything, because it's the first time people have seen each other in a while. It's just like old friends catching up. It's lovely.
Yeah.
It really is. It made me laugh this year at the Globals, which was the first time I judged at that one this year as well. I was speaking beforehand to Roger from White Lake Dairy. I was like, "Oh, are you going?" He's like, no. And I can't remember what he said about that, but there was some reason that he wasn't going. I was like, "All right, okay then, I'm around the area." So in the next minute, I'm sitting there at the awards dinner next to Michael Mort, that used to work for Cause Canarth. He now works for Dairy Gold. And there were a few other people on the table. Roger walks in, sits down next to me, and I was just like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting you." We spent the whole night chatting away, making very good use of the free wine that was on the table. And they were doing cider and cheese pairings. We had the most amazing dinner. There was a ham, I think it was like a sort of pancetta, with like a rocket salad, which was lovely, followed by lamb, followed by a cheese board. The reason Roger was there was to see what cheeses had been donated, because he actually hadn't got a clue. Like, oh, right, okay. And we were chatting that much that we weren't actually listening to what was going on. Completely lost track of these cider pairings, and honestly, it was just, couldn't stop talking. It was just a catch up that happened to go on for the whole evening.
Like you say, the friendliness is amazing. It is just like catching up with friends when you're at these places. So what do you think the best thing is to come from the award so far?
Personally, love the education aspect. While we were at the awards, I overheard, because obviously they open the marquee up and the public are allowed in, and I overheard someone, and it threw me a little bit like, "Oh, it's Young Cheesemonger of the Year. Why don't they have an Old Cheesemonger of the Year?" Now, as far as I was aware, there was one that they used to have at the Farm Shop and Deli Show, which was Cheesemonger of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
All the press and the media of that died down, so I'm not 100% sure what happened there. So there used to be, let's say, like the adult version of it.
I think that still happens. That's in the NEC. Well, it used to be.
Yeah. Sort of about middle of the year, is it April?
Yeah.
And it threw me a little bit. And like Tim Rowcliffe was saying, younger people, because it is an older industry. I mean, the industry itself's been going for years and years and years, and a lot of the recipes that are even still in use today, they're family recipes, but they've been in generations that have just been passed down the lines and people have taken over. Like I say, me and Tim were both discussing this about how important it is having younger people in the industry. Otherwise, at some point, it will just die out, and it's such a huge, monumental industry and nothing like that to think of now could possibly happen to it. So introducing younger people that have got that passion, the enthusiasm, the knowledge and the care is actually really important for the industry. And again, it brings new life into it as well, because, like I say, I'm still learning every single day. And when I judge at these awards, I'm always put on with people that have been in the industry for years, and their expertise and everything they say is fantastic. I was judging at the British this year with a gentleman called John Pearson, who, again, he's been in the industry for years and years. I was hanging on his every word. He's fantastic. Honestly, a fantastic person. Again, he's done all the judging, he's been to all the awards. So that expertise that he's got that can pass down to younger people is phenomenal. So the education aspect for me is really important. Again, I try to educate my customers as much as possible. There was a customer that almost upset me a little yesterday regarding brie. We'd run out of Pearl Wen, and we had a delivery that morning. So this brie, I'd cut it, put it out in the counter, but because it wasn't quite ripe yet, obviously it was still a bit more solid. So they wanted a piece of it. I passed it over and they said, "Oh, I want a fresh piece." That is fresh. A, I've just cut it, and B, the harder a brie is, the fresher it is.
Yeah. And
they were just looking at me with the most vacant expression, and then went for one of the riper bries, and I was just like, I was looking at them really confused and puzzled. I just didn't quite know what to make of it. And educate, like I say, it's not just a product. Shining light in the media and everything on such a huge industry that's ever changing and ever growing really is so important.
You're right. I mean, education in terms of us learning and the customer learning is vitally important, and becoming, like yourself, for want of a better expression, like a beacon to get messages out there.
That's just it. And I know the makers, especially this time of year, are really, really, really busy, and there's about 5 local makers near me, so a lot of them are down south anyway, so obviously we couldn't get them into the store, and they're really busy, so they do need people to completely shout and rave about their products. When I was talking to Jamie Montgomery at the Worlds last year, and I completely fell in love with him. He's so amazing. And we were just having a general chat about how's life and the usual pleasantries and introductions and everything. I mean, I'm completely in awe because I absolutely love his cheddar anyway. So I was stood there, almost starstruck by Jamie Montgomery. He was thanking me for selling his products, and I was just like, I until we were fully discussing it and talking about it, I didn't quite get it. So I was like, well, what are you thanking me for? You make the stuff. And he's like, without people like you, the figures or anything, they wouldn't be as high, we wouldn't have the demand, we wouldn't be making it as much or as well as we are doing.
Yeah.
And it's things like that speaking to the makers and getting more involved in it really, really does hit home. And like, there's people behind this. It's not just a product in a supermarket or on a shelf. There's people behind this.
They all have stories to tell, and removing that stigma of, oh, it's just another product on the shelf. That's where we come in to make that difference. But that is accessible to everyone. Anyone can approach them and get their story and be a better salesperson and shine that beacon on their behalf. If you're that passionate about their product, you can have the power to do that. Just drop them an email, just message them and just say, oh, I love your product, and is there anything new that I can learn about? And I must say, when I went to Quicks, and I don't know if you've been yet, but I know you were saying that you might be going soon. You've got to try when Montgomery's and Quicks swap their cheese over. Hopefully they've still got some there for you to try, but when they stored Montgomery's and Quicks and vice versa. Because that was so...
I overheard that conversation this year at the British Cheese Awards. Mary Quick and Jamie Montgomery were having that discussion regarding their products. And I was earwigging a little bit, and I overheard it, and it was one of the most fascinating and fantastic conversations I've genuinely ever heard.
There's no other way. That is food science, and takes a product that we know, love and recognise, whether that be Quick's Cheddar or Montgomery's. We know the associations with what they look like. We know the flavour profiles and what they should taste like. But to try it and to know that it's picked up a flavour profile from just the air, I mean, that's it. And the microflora from the dairy or wherever it's being matured in the maturing rooms. I mean, it's astounding, and I can never get across to people just how amazing that is to be stood somewhere outside and just to smell through your nose and just pick up the flavour profiles that you can get in a cheese as well. It's amazing.
Well, that's why I loved grading at Wookie Hole this year. Again, that was fantastic, and having cheese for breakfast is usually not something I really think about, to be honest. But yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning, the Wookie Hole Caves, all these fantastic cheddars, the proper rustic looking, mouldy, fluffy cheddars in front of you. And you just smell it, and it smells phenomenal. To any sort of normal person, it just smells really damp and musty and horrible. But I love it, it's fantastic.
It gets your cheesy senses tingling.
It does. That's when you want to start nibbling then, because it's like, oh, let me at it. And it's that sort of just being in the environment. And again, when we have cheese deliveries, had a local one yesterday, Moyden's cheese, and it comes in, it smells just like his store, and it's great. I love it.
Just there's no other way that when you get the smells like that, or the first piece of the cheese, and you crack it open and you've got that smell in there, it just second to none.
Well, it killed me when we were judging at the British this year. So I had the chance, that was ridiculous, to judge Supreme Champion. So I'm stood there at this table with some absolute legends. John Pearson was there, Tim Rowcliffe, Mary Quick, Julie Harbour. I'm stood there quaking in my boots. Tim had the honour of cutting the cheeses open and getting stuck in there. And Mary and Julie were all over it, getting that initial first cut smell. And just seeing their expression, and you could tell what it smelled like just from how they were acting. It was brilliant.
I was there, but I was watching, and it is incredible to be a part of that, to see you be a part of that, but also as well to have that experience of being stood around a table with some of these real top role models in the industry, as well as the mention of Michel Roussinier was there as well, and to see how he was breaking down the flavours and how he was judging it as well was phenomenal.
Yeah, well, with him having the more chef background, and again me being the more retail background, a lot of people look at different aspects when judging. I would decide whether I like it and what tastes and notes and everything are coming through. But then I'd also look, could I sell this?
Yeah.
Would my customers like it? How much would I be able to get through in a week, a month, a year? So there's a lot more to it than just judging and looking at it.
Yeah.
And again, from a chefing point of view, what could I use this in? What could I pair it with? How long would it last in terms of putting it into another product? Even again, like the legends of the cheese world, they don't realise just how special and how legendary they are. I'm completely starstruck being stood next to Mary Quick. She turns around and we're having casual conversations like we've been friends for years. And I'm just like, you're famous. It's so humbling, and they are just normal people. But to anyone in the cheese world, you go absolutely mental for them, and it's brilliant.
Their knowledge and passion and enthusiasm that hasn't waned over all of these years and is still there for everybody to see. It is amazing to be starstruck by it.
They're just special people with special products that don't realise how special them or their products are, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they'll produce vast amounts of it, and demand increases and everything else, but to them it's just what they do.
So, with that in mind, is there a cheese that you've tried now that you wish you added to your featured cheese board at the event?
Sheep Rustler. Without a doubt, Sheep Rustler.
Yeah?
It won Supreme Champion of the British this year anyway. It's just a great cheese. I'd never come across it before, in all honesty. I mean, it was unanimous when it came out that was the winner, completely. One that I would have liked to add was Cerny Pepper.
Yeah.
That was, while I was judging during the day, I was on a few flavour added classes. So I had flavour added, I can't remember what the class was now, but yeah, Cerny Pepper was on there. And it's fantastic cheese. Fantastic cheese. And their ash cheese is really nice as well, actually.
We've just started selling that one again. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Out of the two, I personally prefer the pepper, but they're both fantastic cheeses. I mean, there's a list as long as my arm of cheeses that could have gone on there, in all honesty. A favourite of mine at the moment is a local one that we do called Care Caradot, made by Moydens, which is a really, really nice one. And that would have balanced everything out really nicely, but we've got a £20 budget apparently.
Okay.
So there's only so many cheeses that you can buy for that much.
That's very true.
Yeah, there's a lot of cheeses that I could have played around with, and even now at work I still play around and make different cheese boards and put pairings and chutneys and jams and things on it, especially the time of year with it coming up to, I'm not going to mention the C word, but yeah, coming up to that time of year, people are after that sort of thing and they want something that's, say, ready-made and special.
Yeah, the time of year for cheese boards is really now, and getting those together for people to buy and giving them the inspiration. But I just thought, obviously, because we have the ability now, sat here talking of hindsight, and we can look back over the months and think, oh, I really wish I could have put that on there. But of course, when you're there, you are, like you say, you're trying cheeses for the first time. You've never really seen them before. So, but I just thought that was an interesting question to sort of see what we could add to that. So what advice would you give to next year's aspiring young cheesemonger?
Anyone that's in it, just appreciate being there and love every second. It's an amazing industry to be part of, and being at the British Cheese Awards anyway, I feel like home there now. Say I go round and I chat to people and it's like I've known them for the last 10 years, and take your time with it and stand back and admire it, because in all honesty there's a lot of people, and even when they were opening it, because the doors were still open to the public, they were just barricaded off, and I saw a lot of people just standing there. I was there a few years ago when I first applied, so it wasn't this year, I first applied last year, and me and one of the other contestants happened to be there the day before Young Cheesemonger actually happened. It was so fascinating, and all these words they were coming out with, everything they were looking at and looking for, just talking to them, mingle, get in there, like, they will appreciate you, respect you a hell of a lot more if you get stuck in, but just take it for what it is, and it does get there. It takes a bit of time, but it does get there. For whoever wins, again, go with it. Any opportunities that come your way, say yes. I've been offered firstly, the media coverage, which was absolutely ridiculous. I was on the radio station the day I got back, completely unknown to me. The BBC Radio Stoke rang me, and I had a phone interview with them, which was completely out of the blue, but there we go. And I've been on our local paper, I've been in quite a few magazines now. Just roll with it. Just say yes to everything and roll with it. It's another way of getting stuck in, and it's another way of representing not just yourself but the industry. I've really enjoyed especially the radio shows that I've been on, because every time I've been on it's something different and we end up on completely different topics, but it's spreading the words. Like I say, with having those very personal touches and personal stories and spreading those, it's bringing more home to it.
So what is next for you?
Oh God, the Worlds. Yeah, the Worlds. That's next.
And that's in November.
Yeah, so I fly to Bergen on the 1st of November. We judge on the 2nd, and then I'm back home on the 3rd, due to very restricted holiday days that I've got left.
It's going to be a cheesy whirlwind.
Yeah, well, I found out this morning that there's some Norwegian judges that are on my plane from Oslo to Bergen. So I fly from Manchester to Oslo, then Oslo to Bergen. So I'm on the party plane and going to make a lot of new friends. So that'll be really, really interesting. I'll make sure I've psyched myself up and I've got cheese face paint and everything on so they all recognise me.
There's cheesy boppers.
Yeah. Just stand up in the aisle and just have balloons and everything saying cheese. So yeah, that's next. Again, I'm taking things one step at a time at the moment, because again we're leading up to Christmas. There's a hell of a lot going on anyway, and there's a few other things like the visit to Mary Quick and I have already discussed it with her. That'll probably be next year now. There's a few dairies I want to go and see, but I need to arrange days off and days that certain people are in. So yeah, next dairy visit is going to be the Staffordshire Cheese Company. Like I say, we've been talking about it a lot. It's a case of me going to visit them now and going to make with them, which is really exciting. But yeah, the internationals, which is 3 weeks away, very, very, very close. This time in 3 weeks we'll be judging. We'll have quite possibly finished, actually.
And it'll be interesting to see what the winner will be this year as well.
Yeah, so the Cornish Kern won it last year, made by Lion Herd Dairies that make the Yarg. And the Yarg's a fantastic cheese anyway, it really, really is. They do really well anyway. They did well again at the British this year. Again, they've been going for years and years and years.
I've been trying desperately all year to get some Kern, but I just can't seem to find it.
This is the part where you get really jealous, because I was one of the first people to be able to get hold of full Kerns after they won.
I have emailed and said, please can I have one, or is there anywhere I can get some? And they were bringing their batch up and maturing it, so maybe I'll have to buy some off of yourself.
We usually buy it in quarters, and I got it in not too long before the Worlds last year, and I was introducing my customers to it because a lot of cheeses, Spark and Hope Blue's one at the moment, where it's fantastic cheese, but it just doesn't get the credit because people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And you need to talk to them and introduce them to it, and I did that last year, maybe 6 weeks to a month before the Worlds, and it won. And all the customers were coming back, and I was like, I told you, I knew it. It was absolutely fantastic. And I do actually have all credit for introducing any of my customers to that cheese. So yeah, they won it, which was fantastic. So yeah, it's always really interesting to see who comes up, because like I say, apart from the British this year, I never had the chance to judge the Supreme Champions. Everything's kept quiet, isn't it, until the awards and everything comes out, and it's just was it expected? Did people have an inkling? Last year at the Worlds, the one that came second was a Italian blue vein buffalo cheese. Mm-hmm. That was on our table. We judged that, which is very nice to know. Can't get hold of it, but it's nice to have that little claim to fame.
Yeah. So what I'd like to say is, obviously, for people out there, if you're interested in applying to be Young Cheesemonger of the Year, keep an eye on the British Cheese Awards website. I'll provide a link in the post, but just keep an eye on it. Dates for the show, it's normally the last weekend of May, beginning of June. So moving away from the amazing Young Cheesemonger of the Year award to talk more cheese. So what do you think is the most amazing part about making cheese?
Everything. Last year it was described to me as milk that's left to go off in a stable environment, which is exactly what it is, and it's fantastic, because that is what it is. It's the science behind it I really like, and the first time I ever saw it made, I was in complete awe. I was like, what are they doing? Why are they putting things in it and then realising what the things like the rennet and everything are for? I really, really, really like, and I find it so satisfying when just before they start cutting the curd, when the rennet is set, it's so satisfying. When they, have you seen them put the knife in and like to check if it's ready?
Yeah, it's almost like cutting a blancmange or a trifle, something like that.
It is so satisfying. It's amazing. So that's my favourite part to like see. I like being there and having those chats with them and finding out why they do it and their stories, how they got into it in the first place, who started it, how many generations has it been going on. And the first time I ever went to make cheese was with Moydens, which isn't too far away from me, the other side of Market Drayton really, and I was surprised how small it was. I'm there expecting these huge massive block cheddars and a huge machinery and everything's automated and it's all huge in a big factory somewhere, and I was very, very, very wrong. It's how small and low key, and there's very few places, especially in the artisan side of it, that use anything automated. It's all handmade and it's very hard work and it's all very laborious, but when you see everything that comes out of it, and it is that handmade, and it just makes it that little bit more special.
When you've got that product in your hand and you've seen the work that's gone into it, or you made it yourself, to have that there as an outcome.
Yeah, and again, that's why the awards and things like that are so important, because it casts light on, like you were saying before, the smaller people, the people that maybe haven't been noticed before, they're new to the industry or their products are new. It's that pride and that love that comes with it. And I've never known one person just like, oh right, okay, we've got an award now. They gloat about it and they love it. It's fantastic, and it's really worth. I know a lot of them tend to do like a live link or whoever who's won, don't they? So that might be worth keeping an eye out for, just to see the reactions and all the love and support. It really is fantastic.
So, what do you think is the most amazing part about eating cheese?
Everything ever. It depends what type of cheese it is. I'm more of a fan of hard cheeses myself. Again, going back to the British, this year there was James Montgomery that came reserve champion, and we had a quarter of one of his cheddars on the table. I think he said it was a 12-month. And Mary Quick and Julie Harbert were there going, nose to rind, nose to rind. And I was looking at them really puddled going, I know I'm new to the industry, well, still relatively new to the industry. What are they on about? As I was eating it, because we were cutting it nose to rind, and you could see how the taste changed and developed, like the further, like you were eating it, and things like it's one block of cheese, but all those different tastes and notes and even like different textures that come through in one block of cheese. It's phenomenal. Again, it's what makes these products so special, is how different they are. I mean, I probably stuck about 10, maybe 15 cheddars. I've eaten a hell of a lot more than that as well. And they're all completely different. All of them are completely different. You've
got this experience to come, but with Mary and when we were grading, I think it was 120 quick cheddars over the course of 2 hours, first thing in the morning. And you think, well, they're all cheddars and they're going to share similarities. the differences between them, the maturities and what their main profiles are, is amazing. Just about cheese, about how one can be different from the other, but they can be made in the same vat, with the same dairy herd, in the same location, but each one will have a different flavour profile. I think, and when you're at a level where you can break down those flavour profiles and you're able to taste those differences and nuances between them, I find that amazing when you're at home and being able to break down and go, yes, that you can actually judge it at home and think, actually that woman either slightly younger, slightly older, you can get it and understand the product, and that's what I find most amazing about it.
Yeah, that happened when I was grading at Wookie Hole this year. So we had Roz from Paxton Whitfield with us, and they were selecting their Christmas cheeses. And we were going through and we were grading together, and there were a fair few cheeses, and we were going through in different batches and even some of the same batch. And the differences really, really were fantastic to see. And going back to you saying about judging at home, I personally prefer to not judge at home. And I know that sounds really like, oh, I do all this judging. When I'm at home, I prefer to just eat it and enjoy it and not scrutinise or, oh, this doesn't taste right with this one today. I just prefer having it as it is, like almost the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
Because in some degree, cheese, when you strip it all back, is a very simple product. It's a bit of milk that's been put into a vat. But when you start adding your cultures, your rennet, the different environments, the different ways of maturing it.
When you eat cheese, just to have a nibble of it, you've gone to the, I'll hold my hands up, if you go to the fridge, you could just cut a bit off and you've nibbled it from there. Appreciate it in that moment.
That's just it. There's so much to it, and like there's a lot of specific cheese at the moment that take me back to like certain memories and certain fondness and things like that, and which is again brilliant. But then I'll enjoy the memories that I've got with the cheese and enjoy the cheese, like say, as it is. It's like it's completely different to when you're so used to judging.
Poles apart from when you're stood in front of a table of 50 cheeses, but yeah, I completely understand. I do enjoy when I'm, at home, I enjoy my cheese, but there's also times where I like to have that moment and just think, actually, I try and test myself to see what I can pick up in these cheeses, but also expanding on that, when you're in front of a customer and a customer may come back to you or may not and say, well, if you tried this cheese recently, it might not be, they might find a different flavour profile, and you say, well, the milk season's different, it's made at a different time of year, and you can expand to them as well, and that gives them the confidence in you selling it, but also to them as well, they are then enlightened that, well, there are the milk seasons or the different, storage facilities for a cheese, and, they go away, and all of that flavour profile and tasting profile that you can get and feed back to them, it is amazing as well. And being able to find those in there, I enjoy finding those.
Yeah, I do love having that interaction with the customers, and again, for me, I personally love the stories and the interactions and everything. Got a plan that I want to go through all the dairies in the country within like a few years, and again, there's a hell of a lot that I've already been invited to. It's just finding the time to go and to spend that time with them and watch them. And again, Merry Quick, like I say, it'll probably be postponed till next year now. Having that time and just reliving how they've done things and what they go through and all their expertise and everything that goes with it, because there's so much to it. Like I say, it's not just a product, and the downside to where I'm located is a lot of people do still just see it as that. That's the reason I feel that education's so important, especially when there are all these people and families, years and years of and generations of families that have been involved in this one product. which so many people don't realise. And it's quite shocking. I mean, I was one of those people a few years ago, and I used to love Baby Bell, and I used to love Cathedral City, and that's about as good as I got. My dad still only eats White Cheshire, which I'm quite insulted by, to be honest. Because I personally prefer Applebee's, but there we go. And, I mean, earlier this year, it made me laugh. Do you know about Open Farm Sundays?
Yeah.
So it only happens once a year. A few farms open their doors to the public, and Applebee's was one of them. And I was after every excuse in the world to go there, and we just never set a date for me to go. And I was like, you know what? We'll do this. So I gathered my dad and my boyfriend, and we went to Applebee's for the day. Now bear in mind, I know nothing about cheese. My dad tells me to shut up about it quite a lot, to be honest. Because it gets that bad. And they loved it. I mean, I was ready with my cheese iron in my bag and everything, as usual. And to see, and again, there were loads of families, and it was really busy. Everyone was going round and looking at the process and everything else that goes on. And it was great. It really was, like, it was fantastic to see the engagement that other people had with it. We were going round, and we went round to their milking parlour as well, which is one of the only, rotating parlours in the UK which is still run by water, and the cows have to reverse up it, and it's really funny to watch. I do a lot of farm work and milking in my spare time anyway. I'm back on the farm next Tuesday, so things like that, to me, the farm and the milking point of view, were fantastic. It was great to see. And somebody else that I worked with on the farm anyway, they said that another farm they worked at, they used to have one. And from what I can tell, there's a few people that are bringing them back actually, but they're not run by water. I'm not sure on names just yet. Again, changes in the industry, they change all the time, and there's a lot of trends that do come back into fashion if they help people, which is really nice to see.
History does have a point of repeating itself, but also sometimes these methods that we used many years ago being rediscovered now actually might be cheaper, more financially beneficial. It might produce more yield. You just never know. So giving those a try, it can't hurt anyone. Especially,
like I say, there's a lot of them and techniques that people haven't really wanted to get rid of, but trends have changed, and then all of a sudden they've come back, and it's great. And like I say, trends change, and especially in the food industry and the farming industry, things change all the time, and they are always after things that will help and make life that little bit easier. I know that trends have been changing quite a lot, like a few years ago, regarding cows and like what cows are best for milking and all the rest of that side of things as well, which again is really interesting. And then the changes that happen within farming then obviously have an impact on the changes that happen within the dairy industry and the cheeses. And does this mean that there'll be new cheeses invented? Does this mean that people have to change their way of working? Or there's so many implementations that we don't realise have such a knock-on effect, but then they do. It's important that industry, not only the cheese industry, but many evolve and innovate and don't stay still, so that we can hopefully all in the end have a better product, or it keeps the longevity of the industry as well as providing the product at the end. Well, that's just it. I love how innovative and ever-changing the industry is, but I also really love how traditional it is. There's so many makers that still firmly stick to their root, which is so lovely to see. Obviously a lot of them have gone on to vegetarian rennet lately, which is fine, but again, there's so many that have been fighting it's the wrong way of putting it, but no, we're not vegetarian, this is what we've always been doing and we shouldn't need to change that, which I absolutely love. Powered by standards and recipes and methods, some of them being protected as well for hundreds of years, is just as important, because those products are unique
and have to stay unique, and they're unique because of their tradition. And using the old recipes or handed down vats or whatever it may be, it's that uniqueness that keeps that product going, and the tradition.
Again, that tradition and everything, especially within the British cheese industry, I personally think is what makes us so special. Again, you get your block cheddars and your, say, basic cheeses. Then going into the artisan cheese things, the artisan side, where things are that bit more special. And I will go around supermarkets and pick up cheeses and see where they're from and examine who's made them and see if they do fit into certain categories, i.e. Stilton and things like that, which I know is trade descriptions, so they've got to be really careful. But then you've got things like Stichelton, or supermarkets just call it blue cheese, which is very boring, to be perfectly honest, but there we go. And again, there's others. I mean, Stilton's obviously one of the biggest PDOs anyway, and there are others, PDO, PGI out there, and it's so interesting to see what boundaries they can push and get away with to fall in the category, but not quite. I'd say blue cheese is just one of them, and I absolutely hate that term. It's so generic.
I have to admit, I had that experience when I was in America last year. I thought I'd go and have a look round and see what cheeses I could locate, and they'd imported some cheeses, and they were just blue cheese, cheddar cheese, brie. They were made by reputable cheesemakers, but they've been rebranded and just wrapped and put stickers on, so they just become generic. And I think that's certainly not the way. I don't think the cheesemaker certainly would want that, but they're being rewrapped when they get there. So unfortunately, that does happen sometimes. But if we know where they come from, again, like, it sort of ties back. It's about us trying to proactively sell it or try and change it.
Again, it's more so for like where I'm based. But people come in asking for a strong cheese. Like, are you after a strong Stilton? Are you after a strong brie? Are we talking cheddars? And they'll just look at me really blankly. And I'm just like, strong cheese covers such a multitude of sins. Don't do this to me, we have very strong bries. And they're looking at me as if like, oh well, a brie shouldn't be strong.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a response for you, stop it.
Unfortunately, that is going to be the nature of, I'd imagine, any industry where you've got products that you need to sell. But I think particularly recently, it's sort of going through a resurgence of trying to learn more about these products. But we'll have to wait and see how it pans out over the next sort of 6 months. And I think, tying into that, it's up to all of us to try and do our best to protect it as best as we can and make sure that we inform our customers best as we can.
Oh yeah, like there was one that came in the other day and pointed at a bit of bark and blue and was like, oh, I'll have that piece of Stilton. I'm like, well, that's not a Stilton. And she looked at me, almost quite offended. And I was like, bark and blue's its own, like, it doesn't fall into the Stilton category. Not a Stilton, don't call it a Stilton when it's not a Stilton, please. Again, there's fine lines between what people can get away with saying and what, especially when customers think they're right. It's like, oh, stop it.
So, what do you think's the weirdest cheese you've ever tried?
Weirdest? Ooh. I thought Parve Cobble was a bit weird when I first tried it, but it grew on me. It really did grow on me. Just Hosts is a bit of a weird one, if you ever had that one. It's Norwegian, of course. It's a bit of a weird one. I always have it on, especially at the moment, I've got it on taste quite a bit, and customers are just looking at it like, oh, you've got fudge out. I'm like, no, it's not fudge. I know it looks like fudge, and it doesn't taste too far off either, but it's not fudge, I tell you that now. So that's always a bit of you always get a few mixed reactions off that one. There's a lot of very strange cheeses out there. There was a version of Sage Derby that I tried this year at the British that I wasn't the biggest fan of. It just tasted really weird, but there was something really strange about it.
For me, I had a Belgian chocolate and orange cheese.
Ooh! I
Yeah.
had at the Globals this year. There was one with chocolate in it. I wasn't sure how that went down actually.
Funny, when I was trying to think about questions to put together for this talk, and I was thinking, what questions do I get asked when I'm stood in front of people that I could ask, and I thought, wow, weird cheeses. I mean, I do get asked about that, and then when I really thought about it, there wasn't many, but I think actually another one I had was I had a Stilton last Christmas, and it had truffle and honey. It was truffle and honey infused Stilton. Now, I love Stilton on its own normally, but
It goes very well with honey.
yeah, with honey it was fine, but it was just overloaded with truffle, and all the flavours were just fighting one another, and I couldn't make it balance.
I've had a few bad truffle cheeses again where you don't need a lot when it comes to truffle anyway. So yeah, there's a few out there that are ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I've had a few good cheeses and a few bad cheeses, but nothing that's particularly struck me as that strange. A friend of mine makes Sambuca cheese.
Oh wow.
Interesting. We gave that to my other half's mum. I didn't dare try that one, to be honest. I've come across chocolate cheese quite often. Like I say, at the Globals, we had I took a picture of it because it was so pretty. It was like marbles. It was a very Dutch sort of Gouda shaped cheese. Put the iron in and it came out as this beautiful, almost like animal prints. We tried it and it just, it didn't quite marry up as well as it should have done. And again, with the strong flavours, I always think chili's a bit of one to be very careful of as well.
I tried a chili and pepper, and it was called Vesuvio, and well, you can imagine how hot that was, and I thought it was going to blow the top of my head off. And see, I don't enjoy that so much. I think it needs to have balance.
That's why I'm not, again, the biggest fan of flavoured cheeses or the artificial cheeses, because I appreciate cheese, especially now, a lot more for the art of it being cheese. I get especially with fruit cheese and things, the flavours seep out and it makes the cheese slightly sweeter or whatever. But I prefer my cheese with it, my fruit or accompaniment with it instead of in it.
Yeah.
Because then I can enjoy the cheese for what it is, but also know how to pair it.
So, with the festive season approaching, I know you didn't want to say the word, but is there a cheese that must be on your board this year?
Stilton's always one to have. Cheddar's always one to have. Again, I swear by Montgomery's because it's amazing. There's a few out there actually that if I run through the cheese board that I put together for the British Cheese Awards is one of those that I think is a general good all-rounder, So I had Rachel on there. I had Hartington Stilton, but you could replace that with any Stilton, or I think Bark and Blue at the moment is fantastic, to be honest. I had the Kern on there, but we shall wait to see what wins this year's World Cheese Award. Dorset Red I've got on there. Have you come across that one?
Yep.
Ford Farm. It's sort of a take on a smoked Leicester, but the smoke that's on it does work beautifully. And then I also had our local Guernsey breed, which, again, it's quite a mild breed, so if you do fancy something, all those can be substituted with something, so they're a bit stronger, not as strong, or they can be balanced out quite a lot, differently. And then I paired it with a black grape, sort of jam type thing.
And that would go with...
everything, pretty much.
Yeah. I think you mentioned Spark and Ho Blue. I think that one as well. I think that would be the traditional cheese board. Obviously, for Christmas, it has got to have some form of Stilton on it. But
Spark and Ho doesn't quite fall into your Stilton category.
No, a unique blue cheese at the moment. That took me when I.
It also marries up very, very well with its Leicester.
Yeah.
The two together go beautifully. Also, Spark and Ho Blue with honey drizzled over is to die for. It's actually the most amazing pairing. Okay, yeah, it's only honey, but Spark and Hope Blue makes me so happy because while we were visiting them making their Leicester, they were still building the house that they were going to do the blues in. So yeah, it's like I knew that this was going to happen before it did, and we got hold of one of the first ones out of the batch the first batch they made, and I fell in love with it. Out of all the blues that we stock at the moment, it's really spectacular.
It's got enough uniqueness to it. It looks, although you can say it's got a similar appearance, it has a difference on the rind.
Quite a bit whiter as well.
Yeah.
A little bit whiter. It looks not too far off Colston Bassett, but with a little bit more veining in it.
Yeah.
The packaging's really cute as well.
Unfortunately, it's not one that we currently stock, but I've been lucky enough to, when I've been doing my Cheese of the Month promotions with the Courtyard Dairy, Andy Swinscoe sent me down to try some Spark and Hope Blue, and it was just delicious.
Speaking of new cheeses, have you tried Pitchfork Cheddar?
No, but I have. I've been keeping an eye on that, so I need to get my hands on some again.
Ooh, Clothowin's Dairy. It's very special. When I was down Somerset for the Globals, I went to visit a friend called Trish who does Somerset Membrillo. Some fantastic products. She really has got some amazing products. All homemade in her kitchen as well. Everything's just so unique and special. She had some Pitchfork Cheddar there. So we had cheddar and tomato sandwiches for lunch, and it's honestly the best sandwich I've ever had in my life. It was amazing. Now, I do stick to Montgomery's, however, Pitchfork's coming up very close at the moment, I must say.
They've worked really hard on that. They even the Wendlin that they made, that they put on hold to focus on their cheddar. So I'm glad to talk to somebody that's had a try of some, and it's going in certainly in the right direction. So
it really is a very special cheddar. Honestly, it's something special.
So the final question, but probably the most controversial for any cheese lover, and I always take a big gasp of air when somebody says this to me, but what is your favourite cheese?
Oh, you can't do this to me. I'm going to have to say Le Cray Gruyere. That wasn't the gasp I was expecting.
Okay. That's a very good cheese.
We usually get the whole ones in at Christmas, the 38 kilo ones. Cracking one of those open and having the very first bit of it puts me in a really happy place, to be honest. It is a very good cheese. It's a good all-rounder. It does everything. There's plenty of flavour there. It melts really well. It's great for fondues. It's great to just have a block of and eat as it is.
Good choice. And well answered, considering that sort of on the spot, though it's always very difficult for a...
What's yours?
See, I always go Wookie Whole Cheddar. It's one that I keep in the fridge all the time. It's always there to grab. It makes a good cheese. It's really versatile. You can enjoy it on its own with a grape or a good strong red, or it's brilliant grating to finish off your cooking. Whatever you want to do with it, it holds itself really well. That is one that I always have, so that becomes my favourite because it's always one that I turn to. It's always there. I always love it. Whenever I eat it gives you that cheesy smile. So yeah, Wookie Whole Cheddar.
I've heard worse choices.
I've got many, but because that's the one that's always there, and I stand by that. I mean, at no moment, the one that I've tried recently that's really grabbed me is Pastil de Chèvre, and it's a French vegetable ash coated blue goat's cheese. And that is, well, on my counter, it's one of the most expensive cheeses that we sell at the moment, but it's utterly beautiful. Think along the lines of, obviously, Roquefort, sheep's and ewe's milk cheese, but think along the richer, creamy, intense version of Roquefort. Not as salty or tangy, but it's just utterly beautiful, and that one has really taken me at the moment. And people that don't like goat's cheese, and to even get them to try a goat's cheese is a hard sell. But then to say, well, it's a blue goat's cheese, you've got to try it, and that's really difficult. But once people try it and they've had it, that is just something that is so beautiful and is always comes in, and I've liked that is just such a good cheese. So that's up there at the moment, but just can't knock the Wookie Hole off the top spot. So that's all the questions that I have, but I want to thank you very much for joining me, Nicola, on my very first Cheesy1 chat, and I want to wish you every success for the future. And have you got anything else you want to add?
No, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I thought this might be short, but for the first one, it's an hour and a half. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it, and please let me know if you've got any comments. If you wish to email me, just let me know, and if you've got any subjects that you want us to talk about in the future, again, just let me know, and hopefully I can do that for you. So once again, thanks for listening, and goodbye.